All right, guys. This is recorded, as is, every single one of these webinars on Saturday. So if you happen or need to run out, um, you could grab the recorder and we'll throw it on private Twitter and in the room. Oh, that's what I think you were talking about, Paul, about the registration link. You're talking about to the webinar? You confused me. Oh, okay. All right. So anyway, um, we got a couple things we'll talk about. I'm going to be brief. There's not too much I need to share with you guys. A lot of the stuff we've been talking about for, I would say, the past 2 weeks. I just want to touch on that. And again, I just want to bring these things to your attention, and then you guys act, trade, plan accordingly. Sometimes I'll give you my impression and what, on top of what I'm going to try to do from what I'm seeing off flow and sentiment. But for the most part, I just want to bring it to your attention. And even if you're not making a play on something I'm bringing to your attention, at least you can keep an eye on it, see how it plays out, see maybe why it has worked, why it hasn't. But you should always pay attention to these things because, throughout the course of my career, there's a reason why I felt they are important. Okay. So for the most part, I'm going to touch on the sentiment side of things. Okay. And then what I'll do is we'll kind of get into the flow and you guys, uh, could bring up names you're looking at. I'm interested in the names you guys are looking at because I'll tell you one thing right now. As far as individual names, this is a as tricky market as you're going to get out there. All right. And, let's throw it out there. We're into September. Boo, right? We've been talking about this. September, just for some reason, there's always something that comes, out of left field and bites the market in the rear end. And on the flip side, whether it does or not, right? Even if it does, there usually is a beautiful rally that starts to manifest into October, where we can really take advantage of. Okay. But on the same token, if nothing, it's not like every year, September, the markets pull back, cave in, and so forth. If there's nothing that comes and bites the market in the rear end, you get that chase rally that can carry into late this year. Okay. So that's why when we look at sentiment, you'll see why I continuously bring this up for the past couple of weeks in regards to sentiment. And it all ties together with that. Okay, so let's just dive into it quickly. And then, like I said, then we'll get into the names because it's a tough game right now trading individual names. There's no rhyme or reason out there, and when you see what's going on in sentiment, maybe it helps us understand a little bit better. Okay, let's go. All right, simple equity put to call. Okay, we got a nice elevated number last week. Came in a little off the highs on Friday. Okay. There was a squeeze, red to green, and so forth. But for the most part, you could see we were dangling around here. We want to try to avoid that red line as much as possible. This little pullback in some areas, even larger of a pullback, obviously. But as far as the indices are concerned, the market SPY, very orderly pullback, but you can see starting to get people's nerves rattled a bit. Okay, so that's always a good thing. And here's how it plays out. The SPY chart up here, right? Pretty normal to what we've been seeing. And this is exactly what we've been seeing on every pullback. And I think that's what's helped hold this market up in a sense on top of rotation. Okay, so that's good. Here's the way I look at it now. It's an elevated number already. Okay, so that makes me feel good. I told you guys, anytime you're up near that 0.7 on the equity put to call, that's a good thing. And the way I look at this now is any little flush any headline and there's some selling, the likelihood is this thing is going to get up above that green line. And anytime this thing is up above that green line, you got a nice risk reward as far as a decent squeeze to follow. All right, you may be a little early at times, but for the most part, I wish I took this chart and went back a little bit more. Every single bottom you get an elevated number, 0.75 or above. We spoke about this a couple of weeks ago. You happen to get a 1 on the equity put to call, and you could really feel confident about a squeeze coming to theater near you. Okay, so that's the way I look at it. Going into next week, if we do get a headline with some weakness, I don't want my bias, my emotion to blind me from a long opportunity, a nice squeeze opportunity that may develop. All right, so that's what my interpretation of the equity put to call is there. We had a decent amount of time where we haven't had any signals, right? That's the one bad thing about the equity put to call, and people kind of forget about it and ignore it. You don't get as many signals as you would like. The last official buy signal was this pullback here. Okay, and then you're going back to that February, March, April correction we had. So maybe we'll get something out of that. This is that trader sentiment chart that we look at constantly. This is something, I even urge you guys to look at every day at the end of the day, have an idea of where it is. Same thing, we kind of been bouncing around in the in-between, right? Every time we'd get a little too hot, market would pause, Trump would slap more tariffs on somebody, and you'd get a drag in sentiment, a little bit in price action, keep them honest. All right, and the same thing just happened recently. That's not. Oh, there we go. All right, so up here, we didn't quite get there on, again, the overall market. You'll see tech, I think, actually got there, if I'm not mistaken, but close enough, right? Close enough where you want to be careful, and that's the highs. So it's not unexpected. I mean, you're going to get this bullish sentiment when markets bolting the new highs and everyone's getting excited. And that's a spot to where you want to be careful. And here, little by little, okay, there hasn't been that flush, that orderly pullback, like we're saying. We're getting, again, once we start to approach this green area, similar to like the equity put to call, you want to start looking around. You want to at least keep your eyes open. No matter how tough the market looks, no matter how scary the headlines may look, you want to start looking. You don't have to start buying, but you want to start looking. Okay, so that's where we are here. And again, anything beyond here has set up a real nice squeeze. Okay, really nice. They've been jumping the gun many times too. You can see this little pullback here. People thought, uh-oh, we're going to roll over, and another squeeze there. This one didn't quite get there. We spoke about that. That was the last pullback. All right, so they've been jumping the gun a little bit. So that's why you want to start looking at least around these areas here. Ooh. Now I'll show you the NASDAQ. And then this is where it gets tricky. You guys probably would agree with me. NASDAQ, right? What's the NASDAQ? When I think of NASDAQ, I'm thinking FANG names, I'm thinking tech names, and you talk about confusion out there right now. You got Facebook got lit up, right? Netflix already got lit up. Google's struggling. Apple has been strong as hell. Amazon's been strong as hell. You got software names, they don't go down. Okay, even this little pullback here where some of the tech names were too hot and got washed out, these things still haven't sold. And it's not, it's not all tech either, right? You got other NASDAQ names that are in the mix. It's just a lot of confusion there. So it's really tough to get a gauge on the overall NASDAQ because there's, such disparity between the individual names in the index. So as a whole, though, all right, this is the Qs up here. You can see here, all right, this is where you want to be careful, and for good reason. Okay, new highs, whatever you want to see, at least a pullback there. We got it. All right, and we're getting honestly a little more than I even thought we might get. But you got September too, so that's going to play into the account here. So got the pullback, and we got really, really close off Thursday selling, right? That was Thursday? Yeah, Thursday. Friday, we opened up lower. So let me give you guys an example who aren't familiar, especially if you can be tactical. Day trading right now, there's a decent opportunity, but just that opportunity. Okay, let me elaborate on that a bit. Thursday, I think it was Thursday. We're down here. Okay, so again, similar like I was telling you on the other ones, the equity put the call, even though we're not officially technically in the green zone. The way I look at it, I come into the day and I say, if there's weakness, okay, if this market happens to follow through, gap down a bit the next morning, if I see call sweepers starting to be active in any sort of way, that's where I want to participate a bit. Okay, and I'm looking for that squeeze. All right, because again, even though we're not there yet, some weakness is telling us we're going to end up there, right? We're technically there right now, and we want to use the flow as a guide to where maybe the pros are jumping the gun a bit. All right, I think that right now, as tough as individual names are, especially swing trading and stuff like that, I think we have that trade for this month where when we're close enough and we see some selling, especially the early morning, guys, it's usually in the morning, right? The morning you get a good indication. If there's no buying and we see put sweepers grab the ball, there's a good chance, at least for the early part of the day, the momentum's going to be to the downside. Okay. But I get my days confused, but I think it was Friday, right? Yesterday where we saw buying come in, right? In the morning. They were active, or it might have been Thursday morning, whatever the case. You guys know what I'm talking about. But we saw some buying come in, and we saw a nice squeeze from red to green. And then the rest of the day was pretty dead. Okay, but there was a nice squeeze from red to green. I think it was Thursday morning. All right, so that's the picture I'm trying to paint for you guys. That's the setup that I think we have, where there's not too much risk and you could get some decent movement. Okay, it's worth it. All right, so here we are, tech, same thing, a little bump up. As you can see here, little bump up in sentiment. Next week, early weakness. The likelihood we're going to be right down there where we want to be. Oops. And I'll take your questions on all this stuff at the end of this, okay? I promise I'll get to any questions you guys have. Equity put the call we looked at. Here's another one. I didn't like where we were. This is not as short term as some of the other stuff we look at. The fear greed model, okay? And to be quite honest, I've seen markets, strong bull trends rally through greedy signals, okay? I've seen that enough. So I don't, and it's more of an intermediate indicator. I kind of look at all the other stuff I just showed you. Then I look to see where this is. More for swing trading than anything else, position trading. And same thing. You do not really want to be too long when this thing is, up in the red zone. Risk reward wise, obviously not as favorable. And you can see we banged our head up against this here, eventually topped out, had a pullback, just back to neutral, basically, a little under neutral. Then another strong rally here. We bumped our head up here again, right? A little pullback, got it back down to neutral, just keeping them honest. And then here, right to highs again, and a little pullback back to neutral. So just again, my interpretation of this is I'm happy that this thing is here and not here right now. Okay. See, every single indicator I just showed you guys, if we were on the other side, if all these things were lingering up here and we're in September, I'd be really concerned right now. You know, I'd be really, really concerned right now. Okay. But as I'm showing you guys, a lot of that exuberance, excitement, bullishness that was created off new highs has been washed out. We don't have, we don't have quite the bearishness we would like yet, but we're pretty close. Okay, we're really close. All right, so again, my interpretation of this is I'm okay with this here. If we get this down here, that's fantastic. But I'm okay with this being neutral. Because like I said, it's a more, you could see, it's more of an intermediate indicator where, if you're waiting for green per se, you can miss some big rallies. And most of us are short-term enough that we don't need that. Okay. Same here, right? You don't want to necessarily wait on this indicator for this thing to get into the green because you'll miss opportunities. If it's there, it just adds another stronger signal to the mix over the intermediate time frame. All right, option buyer sentiment gauge. This is just something, again, intermediate indicator I look at, not as religiously as the others. We were in technically be careful zone. We've come out of that, so that's okay. All right, this is the stuff, if you've been paying attention to the post-market commentary on probably the last 2 or 3 webinars now, we've been talking about this, okay? And guys I've worked with, this is the talk of the town right now, okay? This is the talk of the town. This is hedge funds, all right? And we spoke about this, like I said, for the last couple of weeks. And the reason why this was a topic for anybody who's new here, you could see that from the hedge funds basically being fully exposed on the long side. All right. And this thing could move around. This thing could be up here. This thing could get down below the green line. It moves around a lot and swings around a lot. But, from here, you could see, look at this selling here. Okay. And we're like, you guys remember, we were saying we're seeing it in the market, not just this week, even as the market was pushing the highs. If you guys remember, we were talking about it. We were seeing how, the fades where you get a gap up and they'd be selling the mock numbers at the end of the day, or into the closing bell, you would see these fades when the market was green, and there'd be some, a whoosh in the last 15 minutes. So we're seeing it in the price action. Okay, we're seeing it in the price action. But this now has become pretty extreme here. Okay, and what this is telling me is the hedge funds are they are timing the market. Okay, they are looking on whether the market's up, down, sideways, crooked. They're looking to take chips off the table, and they have completely. All right. A lot of times when you see this, it could weigh on markets over the short term. Okay. So in other words, when I start to see this, I'm not getting bullish instantly, because think about it. They're moving big money around. Okay. So they're going to weigh on prices going higher as far as the overall indices are concerned. But you could see, obviously, since they've been selling, this market really hasn't done much to the downside. We had a couple days last week where we gave back that rally, which they sold into. Okay. But all in all, net, from where they started selling, there hasn't been any weakness. You know, a lot of times you'll see this and you'll see, you know, net weakness from that point. Okay. Now, the reason I get bullish when I see something like this is any little positive news. Okay. Or, like I said, if something cataclysmic doesn't happen in September, if there's not that exogenous event out of emerging markets or Turkey or tariffs, okay, and this market starts to get away from them, what you're going to see is you're going to see this indicator here go like this. Okay. And they're going from having no exposure, probably net short, to now they have to get net long. Okay. And if you remember, we were talking about that at the beginning, not this past week, the week prior, the holiday week. Okay. The market was getting away from them. If you remember, we started to see the flow, that chase flow come in, the small sweepers just going bonkers on some of the big names, tech names, high beta names. So my personal opinion, that was down here, by the way. Okay. I thought we might be in the midst of that already. You can see there was a little bump up. You see that little bump up right here? All right. So I thought, okay, here they come. But after we got back from the holiday, you know, there was the markets were weak. There was some more selling. And as you can see, it's even lower now. So net, they're still selling. All right. So this thing is still at play. It's, in my opinion, even better that we got a little pullback, you know, because if you think about it, here was the problem we were facing. We were facing a market at new highs. Okay. All the other sentiment stuff we look at was extreme bullish, the opposite of this. So it was kind of like, you know what I mean? It was a weird scenario. Usually, a lot of the other sentiment indicators are in line with this. This doesn't happen often where there's bullishness from everywhere else but hedge funds. So I think it's a positive that we got this pullback this week, knocked out some of the retail bullishness out there, and now we have the whole ball of wax starting to line up. Now, through my experience, okay, because I told you this is not common. This is rare that you see this in a market near highs. All right, you can see, you know, look here, okay, a little pullback, right? They were all in, right? You see it here. This is a recent example here. And then I'll go back in time and show you the others. Watch this. Okay, right here, right? It's telling us they're all in. And you get this. There's the weakness. Sets up a low there, right? And look what they got to do. Whoop, right back. Okay? And then same thing, right? They try to get cute. They come out, a little bit of weakness, right? They wait on the market a little bit, and they come right back in again. And then since this point, you know, look at this. More selling than ever, but the market really, as a whole, is higher. All right, and I'll go back and show you. Here's another situation where they're all in, and then you get a little market pullback, but you can see they really didn't sell too much there. All right, I'll show you in the past now a couple examples of what I've seen when this happens. All right, I didn't do this the last time for you guys, so I wanted to make sure I do it. Here's basically as far back as you even need to go. Okay, this is 2008 Armageddon and everything else you need to see. The one instance where they were net, you know, continuous sellers was that 2008 crash, okay? And if you think about it, it makes sense because a lot of those hedge funds, it wasn't by choice, it was forced selling, right? People had to sell everything they could get their hands on. The whole world was crashing. All right, so you can see right here, look though, all in at the highs, all in. And then they had to come out and, again, this is, unless another 2008 style Armageddon scenario is right around the corner, you really don't want to use this as an example. But this is an example of what can go wrong and where hedge funds can look right. But I'm telling you from experience, they weren't right. They got destroyed, and it was forced selling that created this. Okay, so I wanted to go back and show you what happened, because everybody wants to know what happened in 2008, that one period of time where obviously everything went south. What I think this looks like to me is these situations here I was looking at. All right, so you had, you can take whichever one looks or resembles something we're similar, to what we're in right now. Here, the market at highs. Oh, let me get the highlighter here. Market at highs right there. Again, they were all in though. You understand? They were all in at that point. They got caught. So now they got to sell. Eventually, market bottoms. What do? They got to get back in, right? And creates this rally. All right, so here's a similar situation, all in. Market starts to turn on them. They got to get out and then some, and it leads to that low. Then what happens? Rush back in again. Okay, so you see, look, these make sense, right? Some weakness in the market, they get caught too long offside, and they got to sell. Back again. They're all in, similar things. Now, this is where I was going to give you the example, okay? Here, if you see here, they were selling into that. And the market really, was going against them. It wasn't pulling back. And then this led, you see how that started to curl up and then went like that. And this rally carried on for more. All right, but I'm just giving you the examples here. That's all we can look at. Anytime the hedge funds are completely dry and they need to get back in the market, they need long exposure, right? If there's no crash in this market and you start to head in to the end of the year, they can't have no exposure. That's where you get that chase. Right? That's where you get that chase. A lot of times it happens and into the end of the year, October, November, December. You get, you get this. Or sometimes like in January, you get, even a bigger move in a shorter amount of time. All right. So I just wanted to give you guys some past examples. But like I said, it's pretty rare that these guys aren't caught into the highs and aren't caught empty-handed at the lows. This market being basically near new highs and this indicator to look like this is strange, to say the least. Strange to say the least. And again, we're seeing this hedge fund crap, they're selling. It's so obvious, not even funny. I mean, look at what you see what's going on, like the gambling names. We talk about this in the room constantly. Win, anything China related, you name it. They're selling in baskets. They're selling everything. It's not like, oh, this doesn't really have Macau ties, so let's hold this one up, they're selling everything, you know, and that's got to do with the ETFs and everything else as well. But we're seeing this nonstop aggressive selling. So it makes sense, you know, you see this indicator doing this here. Whoop. All right. And again, the opposite of that would that chase, it can get crazy. It can get crazy. You know, so the main thing with these indicators, okay, is not to act on everything you see, but to get that feeling, that emotion that creates a bias within you, not to let that get the best of you. Okay? Not to let it get the best of you. To keep your eyes open. If we start to see that flow scramble and get long names just because the news looks that bearish, you know what I mean? Or, you know, you read an article that Turkey, the contagion's coming, you know, to block that out and be able to take advantage of, you know, opportunities out there. Because there's definitely going to be a ton of opportunities out there if and when this chase comes. And it's going to come. It's just a matter of whether, you know, prices are going to be a little bit lower than we are here, or, you know, this market starts to move away from them and they're going to have to chase higher prices from you. All right. Anybody have any questions? Ooh, let me get to that. On any of this stuff. Let me get to you guys here. All right, so Eric's saying maybe they don't want exposure into the election. Could be bad if Democrats sweep. But that's exactly what I'm talking about, Eric. You know that. I know that. That's probably, it could be a reason that they're doing it. But if that's the case, and they're already sold, you know what I mean? It's already factored in. You ever hear, Eric, it's already factored into the market? When you see selling like that, it's factored in. We're not seeing it in the overall indices yet. But in other words, the logic is if hedge funds have no exposure, right? They sold basically everything. They're net short. Where's the selling going to come from? Yeah, exactly. Ani makes a great point, right? Maybe they're selling because if Trump gets elected and the market's going to crash, right? I mean, there's a million examples like that. Maybe they're selling because, you know, this trade war stuff is a disaster. Markets at new highs. Maybe they're selling because Gary Cohn left the cabinet and he's the biggest market guy out there. Market rally. You understand what I'm saying? You raise a good point. I agree with you 100%. Logic would tell you don't want to be long into that election. But the point I'm trying to make is if it's already factored into the market, you know, any little positive news you get, hedge funds have nothing. What are they going to do? Right? Like Ani's saying, Trump got elected. Why did the market rally like a banshee? Why? Because everybody already sold. Everybody was short. Everybody was all lathered up in protection, waiting for the crash. You know, the game doesn't work that way. That's exactly the point I'm trying to make. Yeah, I think the flow is the tell. I really do. I think the flow will be the tell. What happens is if you want, in other words, let's say you don't want to be early. You're okay being a little late, right? You don't want to be early in the market to still continue to the downside on you. You want to wait for this turn here. So what you're going to see, if you remember again, I forget, it was the holiday week before Labor Day. Okay, that week. If you remember what the flow looked like, you remember one after the other, those sweeps, even a lot of small sweeps. It was like just Uzi firing all over the place. That's them scrambling for exposure. Those little sweeps that we see, okay, they're not all just bullish bets. Those are shorts that are caught and need to hedge immediately. Those are hedge funds looking to get exposure on names that they have no exposure. That's why they're sweeping the market one after the other. So if you want to be a little more prudent, a little more cautious about this play, you raise a good point. You would want to see, they're not going to miss. In other words, the flow is not going to show us that they're not buying. You know what I mean? We're going to see them buying in the flow if they're buying. There's no doubt about it. No doubt about it. But here's the tricky part. Okay, here's the tricky part, Eric. And this is what makes this market so difficult right now. Okay, they may come into the names that aren't even going down. You know what I mean? You understand what I'm saying? These names hardly even right. AMD, like, look at, if I blindfolded you and told you the market has been selling off this week, and you know what I mean? If I didn't tell you that and I showed you this AMD chart, you'd think we're in 1999 style market, right? Or Square. You got to be kidding me. So you see these names here, these software names, these strong names out there. I think those are the places to keep an eye on. But the point you raise about waiting for the flow to really start to heat up, some of these names may be gone. Some of these names may be gone. So listen, I'm the first to admit it. It adds a wrinkle into this market that it almost pisses me off. It makes it really tough. Individual names here are really difficult because me, I like buying pullbacks. But you see what they're doing. These pullbacks, there's no bids in them. They keep hammering these things. They keep hammering these things. Yeah, and John, that's why I'm saying, John's saying, doesn't it make sense that they go back into names that have been strong because they need to show them on the books for year end. That's exactly it, John. That's that chase, right? That's the hedge fund chase. Because, like the Take-Two, EA is more appealing. There's a bigger pullback there. Even ATVI, yeah, you could see this Take-Two, there's just not much selling there. You know what I mean? There's not much selling there. And again, all those software names, you look at them, CRM, any little pullback, it's bouncing right back. There's ZS had earnings, they use it to sell it off, boom, up 5 Friday. Yeah, casino, they don't stop selling these casinos. Casino, gambling stocks, Chinese stocks, semiconductors, right? The semis, they've annihilated some of these semis. Yeah, John, Micron, that's been the issue there. You could see they're selling any little rally, selling. You got earnings coming up there. We'll see what happens. And that's what we're all asking. Where's Tepper? But, let's see, maybe post earnings, it's a different climate. Listen, the stuff that's selling off, eventually they're going, I told you, look at what happened to retail, okay? Just because hedge funds are selling that aggressively doesn't mean they're right. Okay, remember the retail example. They were talking retail's going out of business. One by one, they're all going out of business. Amazon is going to destroy Costco. That was the word. Yeah, I see that. Okay, so don't get me wrong. Eventually, there will be a ton of opportunities. All these things they're selling just right now, it's tough to get in the way of these things right now. Well, and again, that's why we talk about time, right? You need time if you're even looking at these things. But Costco was tough, right? I remember Costco, there was relentless selling in this thing, relentless. And a lot of people saying, "Oh, you can't touch Costco right now. Amazon, you can't touch Costco." And if you stop paying attention to it, once it really started to regain its footing, I mean, look at these moves, right? Ulta was another one. Wasn't Amazon getting involved in beauty products and all that crap? These are big moves if you buy the dips. Lulu, you all heard that. Lulu going out of business. Those yoga pants are a fad, right? You all heard that. So just because they're selling like this, the point I'm trying to make, doesn't mean they're right. But as we see, even in the overall markets, a lot of times when the hedge funds are selling aggressively, they're going to weigh on markets and prices of stocks over the short term. There's nothing you can do about it. There's nothing you can do about it. So why, John, you raised the best point where they're likely to go into the stronger names first. My bet is you're going to see it spill over into the other stuff. Remember we were looking at that, we were talking about that, how all the hot names are roaring, but we want to see the flow spill over and get aggressive into the beaten down stuff. Okay? March bull combos into next year in size, that's great. But if you want to see some momentum now, we need to see them get aggressive now. Front month stuff, 2 months out, couple weeks out. Not in January, March of next year when the selling is as aggressive as it is now. Okay, so it goes back to the point that from my experience, there's never been a move like we're saying potentially can happen here without the flow confirming it. Without the flow confirming it. All right, so let me get to a couple other questions. And in the meantime, I'll tell you guys, it's a lot easier said than done, but if you're short term or day trading, probably the most efficient trade right now, as difficult as the market is. Two different statements. Baba, yeah, I heard Jack Ma, I posted it in the room, he resigned, right? So, I mean, listen, these China names, whether Jack Ma is retiring or not, have been awful. The baskets of selling in these China names nonstop. Is wrong? He's not retiring? Is that what you're saying? Oh, it's fake news? Oh God, stop it. You gotta be kidding me. Oh, what a casino, man. What a casino, huh? How's that happen? Oh, luckily it didn't happen during market hours. That would have been a shit show. Whoa, what a casino we're in. Let me see. Did I miss any questions I don't want to miss? If I missed any questions, throw them out there again regarding sentiment. All right. So basically, to sum it all up, I think it's a blessing that we're getting some of the short-term stuff line up now with this. Okay, that could end up being a deadly combo. Just be a little bit of patience here, and we'll wait to see if the flow starts to light up. Let me go right into that, and then we'll get into some names, what you guys are looking at. think it was Thursday. Yeah, let me go back to Thursday so I can show you. I get my days, these short weeks. I don't know what day it is anymore. I don't know anything. Hold on. Let me see. Yeah, here it is. Right? Let's see. 9/6. I'm almost positive it was this. Anyway, in the morning, okay, and as we get into the fall, this pattern I'm about to talk about is going to probably dissipate little by little, but a lot of the action comes early morning. You guys know that. Then you get into lunchtime, into the early afternoon, unless you get a tape bomb from Trump or something. You really don't want to be in the middle of those markets. It's dead, dead. The flow is dead. Price action's dead. All right, but I don't know if you guys been noticing, if we have weakness, right? If we have weakness, like I'm saying, like here, like we're set up now, okay? We come in Monday morning and you see some decent weakness in tech, we gap down, whatever the case may be, and you start to see the flow look like this, okay? That's an indication to start looking to get long something. I'm talking about for an intraday play now. All right, you may want to turn it into a swing if you like where sentiment's at, you like where the stock's at, you like the action. Okay, that's your call. But I'm talking about as a momentum play. If you see we got some selling and you have these indicators lining up like this, and the flow, in other words, you see an appetite for buying. There were a couple examples last week. We opened up, sideways, down was irrelevant, and there was just no buying. There was actually put action. Okay, that's telling us that the chance of any upward momentum there, of the market pushing higher from there, a sustainable move, is not likely. All right, so that's why, like for me, in a market that's pulling back, as much as I would like to take advantage of any piece of weakness I can, unless I see sweeper activity around these pullbacks, I'm not getting involved because I got nothing else to gauge it on. How do I know, how do I know what rally intraday is for real or not? I have no idea. I'm using the flow as an indicator of possible momentum. How do I know, over here, if they're buying this pullback, this rally is sustainable, or this rally? So in other words, you get a flush, let's say at the open, this is pre-market, but I'm giving just an example. And you see sweeper activity starting to come into that weakness. That's a decent risk reward trade off intraday momentum right there. So whether you're getting long names, again, which is difficult right now, or ES or SPY or whatever it may be, that's what you're looking for as far as an intraday trade off the flow. And it's an easier read now because if there's no appetite out there, if sweepers don't have an appetite to buy and get long stuff, you're going to see, like I said, you're going to see minimal action, no sweeper activity, or sometimes, like we saw last week, red. Okay, and that may be an indication that there's more downside. Okay, so those are the things to look at. Those are the things to look at. So even if you like the names or not, that's why I'm saying this, even if you like what they're buying or not, you may want to make a play on the overall market. This is shorter term tactical stuff. All right, as far as now the in between, okay, you have that trade, right, for a day trade. The longer term trade, for me anyway, is I want to look to buy names off these pullbacks that are starting to catch some size action, but I want to make sure I have a lot of time there so I could piece in nice and easy. You know what I mean? I know I'm going to be early. Aside from those two setups, the in-between trade is the difficult one, okay? Because one, we're not seeing much of any aggressive flow for that in-between trade, all right? We're either seeing size Jan, March activity into next year, or we're seeing these small sweeps that are just playing an intraday squeeze. The best of the action, especially when the market's bullish, is that aggressive activity that goes out 1 or 2 months. And you can look for a move over the short term. We're not seeing a lot of that. We're not seeing a lot of that. Nothing really aggressive anyway. I'll give you an example. What I'm talking about is like Take Two. Okay, caught some action Friday? Yeah, yesterday. All right, for next week. All right. I think it was 2 sweepers in the hole. Now, if they really came after that, right? If they really came after that line, you know what I'm talking about. They've done it in Microsoft numerous times. They'll do it in the CRM. They've done it in Take Two. Those are the real nice setups for those short-term swings. Now it's almost like they're nibbling at that stuff. They're nibbling. And you may feel it's worth a shot anyway, right? Take Two, you got a decent pullback there. Caught legitimate sweeper activity. You think you could get a nice bounce to at least maybe test highs. But that's more of your call than relying on that super aggressive activity. And to give an example, what I'm doing, remember, we would see it a lot. Microsoft, right off a pullback. They come in throughout the whole morning and pile them up. Calls 2 weeks out, a month out, and just keep coming one after the other, after the other, after the other. Those are great for me anyway. Those are the best trades. You know what I mean? Those are the best trades. But unfortunately, we're not seeing that flow yet. We've been talking about that for quite a bit. We had earnings, we had the summer, we had all that stuff. But hopefully that'll start to materialize, and that'll be a nice heads up on that hedge fund squeeze as well. All right, so that's the problem with this market right now. We got that intraday trade, primarily mornings. If you see buying coming into a flat or weak open, there should be some decent momentum there, at least for the morning. And then you got that longer term action, which looks awful right now, right? Stocks, look at this SGMS. Look at this. Like, there's not a bounce in sight. Now, granted, okay, I got some Jans, and I'm trying to build a pretty decent sized position in Leaps. So I know I'm going to be early, but there's not a bid in sight of this thing. There's insider buying left and right? There's size activity out, Jan, Leaps, and this thing can't bounce for the life of it. Win. Ridiculous. All right, but I'm still interested in this stuff, okay? Because what happens is this, okay? How long is this going to go on? If, let's say, in a couple of weeks from now, there's more size that comes in with time, and these things are lower, they're not going to zero in a straight line, okay? As much as they look like they're going to zero, they're not going to zero. So that's why I like little by little piecing into this stuff, okay, with time behind it, because I know eventually, I may have been early on 1 or 2 of them, but the last batch of names that I started buying with time, I'm going to make real nice hits. The problem I'm going to face is, when do I sell these things? That's going to be the problem a lot of times I run into. I ran into that problem with SGMS originally when I bought Leaps. It's like, again, the example, let's say you're buying Costco, right? Costco is catching a flow out a year from now or 9 months from now. And you're early and this thing keeps selling and it can't find a bottom, and the rallies fade, and then you finally get a decent rally. It's going to be tough not to sell that. It's going to be tough not to sell it. That's the problem I face a lot of time with these things with time. You never catch that whole move anyway. That's the problem. That's the problem. But yeah, SGMS by far has better action than IGT. IGT is a different can of worms, but it doesn't matter. Honestly, you understand? It doesn't matter. That's what's going on right now. Like they're going to treat IGT just like they're going to treat SGMS. And when they sell that group, they're selling them all. They're selling them all. So, but yeah, it creates a tough environment for individual names. It creates a tough environment. And like I said, these software names are just Jack Ma unveils succession plan next week. Remain chairman. Listen, if what I'm saying is it doesn't matter if they continue to sell these Chinese names like that, just like the gaming stocks and everything else we're talking about, the gambling names. It doesn't matter. These things are all going down, until that selling stops. And people are starting to talk about it now, like CNBC was talking about, the hedge fund selling in these things and the ETF selling in these things, being dramatic. They're nuts. It was fake news. Well, there's a ton of fake news. All right. So what names are you looking at? Sold half his stake Thursday and Friday. Not sure you get $700 award every quarter, but all these software names look fine to me. I'm sure they're not all the same, even though they do look all the same, right? But they're all hot. They all seem tariff proof. Every little pullback gets bought. Hopefully, we start to see some action in maybe another tier of these names. That's possible. Like we were saying, the ZS, because some of the early names, some of the bigger names that caught action, it's not just software. It's the Grubs of the world and all that stuff. GoDaddy, which doesn't catch that much flow, but we've seen flow there. They're all strong, and every little pullback is met with buying, and they're doing what they're supposed to do. FTC, PayPal, right? PayPal moves around a little more than the others, but every dip, they buy it. She ends up back at new highs. So that's where the strength and the underlying bid is right now. You saw it. CRM caught that February cannon, right? What was it? $1 million bet February. It's just I'm not as comfortable in these names this late in a trend. It's just me. It's a preference thing. But like I said, the good thing is you got a little bit of a pullback. Like for me, I don't know about you guys, but for me, buying Square here, I can't do it. And you hear me say that a lot, and I'm wrong a lot, right? But I just can't do it. Like, I thought this thing was maybe one of the first to pull back. One of the first. It had one day of a pullback. There was some flow into that day. And then look at it. It's a spit away from new highs again. AMD too. AMD's in that category. AMD's in that category. I mean, where's this thing? I don't know. I don't have much of an opinion on AMD. The only thing I can tell you is like I've been telling you guys, when the stock is down and you see some aggressive call sweeper activity coming in, you see it sometimes come in bands. If you're looking to play it, that would be your entry. Other than that, me personally, I can't look for entries up here. For anything than a quick red to green type trade, I can't. Like Square, I played a couple of times, not last week, I think the week prior to that, they were buying the daylights out of it. Stock opened up, it was down 40 cents. There was a couple of sweeps already. you can almost feel it. I'll get in the middle of it, try to make 60, 70 cents. You know, I got lucky one day, I caught a buck by accident. But any more than that, I can't do it with these things. I can't do it. You know, I'm gonna need, if they're gonna still buy these type of names, I'm gonna need the flow to spill in to, you know, the next ZS potentially. You know, the next HDP potentially. Stuff like that. You know, here's one that looks decent. If it could catch some better looking action, box. You know, stuff like that I would look at. So in other words, we saw some bull flow in box, if you remember, into this little nonsense. And if this thing hangs here and all of a sudden we see the box flow that we were seeing back here, right? It was pretty aggressive. You got a decent spot here. You got a decent spot. You know, it looks totally normal to me. You know, run up, consolidation, and you see flow start to heat up here. You got a nice setup. You got a nice setup in the perfect group. There's not too many like that, like this setup in that group. You know, here's another name. I'm surprised we didn't talk about it yet. You know, again, I'll day trade it if the stock is red and catches a couple sweeps. I'm in it for a day trade. Why wouldn't I? You know, but to swing it from here, this stock pisses me off in general because this was a nice setup and you had earnings in the way and everything else. But you know, this is, you can see this looks a lot different than all the other names we were just talking about, right? Look at this. This Roku's legit. The flow is legit. Well, the problem is, here's where we would want a pullback, and they're not giving it to us, right? If any name we would want a pullback in, it's Roku right now. Here's your pullback. One day, boop. So, yeah, the weed stocks kind of went nuts now. Cron, you know, had a nice quick day. Oh, Twilio, yeah, I saw that, right? Had a little bit of pullback. That too was an animal. By the way, another stock that I can't tell you, Twilio, how many times I day traded this name and it wouldn't move for me. Wouldn't move. Okay? It would catch action. It was cheap. It was in the 20s, if I remember correctly. Where was it? Yeah, 20s, 30s, and wouldn't move. And then now, look, I can't even believe my eyes where this thing is right now. You want to know another one? Caught even better action than Twilio? Shamu. How many times have you heard me talk about Shamu sweepers? Do you see this thing? I couldn't make $1 with this stock. I couldn't make $1. And how is this thing up right now? What's going on? SeaWorld? People are going to SeaWorld? If I didn't watch Flow, I wouldn't even know they're still around, SeaWorld. I don't think Shamu's even there anymore, are they? Oh, is that what it is? M&A target. Yes, Ani, I know that. Ani's saying eventually the same thing's going to happen with these gambling. They're not going away. It's just a matter of time. Yep. You know what the problem is, Ani? And I can relate. I agree with you 100%. What happens is they get tough like they are now, right? And that's why, like, luckily, they're buying leaps again. Okay, the last time they were buying leaps in this thing, the stock was in the teens. All right, same exact scenario. So luckily they're sweeping leaps here, and I bought some leaps. So I know I'm gonna at least have a piece of the pie. Otherwise, what happens is you try trading them, they don't move. The selling is relentless. It becomes too difficult of a trade. You say, that's it. I'm never trading this stock ever again. you ignore the flow, and then like Ani's saying, you're gonna turn around, 6 months, 7 months down the line, and you're gonna be like, wait a second, this is SGMS? That's how it happens. He's 100% right. But it's easier said than done. When we're looking at the price action every single day, whether you have Jan calls, leaps, when you're looking at every minute of price action in this market and it looks like this, it is so difficult. So difficult. Because not only, like, look, I have leaps and I'm piecing in, and I'm still, each and every day, I'm underwater more and more on these things, right? So even when you have the time, when you see your position and the P&L on it continues to go south, doesn't really make you feel all that much better just because you have time. You're still miserable. But yeah, if you ask me, I think personally, the big trade opportunity is going to come out of the stuff that's pretty weak right now. Eventually, you know what I mean? That's where I think, because of how bad they've been battered. So you just gotta weigh your style and what type of trader. That's why, as a blanket statement, over the short term, you're looking at names like this. It'll be easier to trade names like this because there's aggressive buying. There's buying. People are interested. They buy dips. They support pullbacks. They have momentum. So that's where, if you're looking for shorter term plays, you got to look at this stuff. But the longer term stuff, that's my point. Like, I'm not looking to buy Square up here and, in calls out next year. That's not what I want to do. That's the point I'm trying to make. But don't get me wrong, shorter term, this is where the juice is. And the same thing like the gaming stocks. I think for shorter term momentum, Take Two is the name you want to look at. And then the other ones, you want a decent amount of time behind them. Like even EA got kind of screwed, right? You had that shooting, they had to cancel the Madden tournaments. It's kind of, you're not going to factor that into the equation. But even without that, you still want time buying a pullback, with some selling like this. Ani, I just, that's a good question though. Ani's saying, do I look at the history in deciding which stock I may want in the sector? A lot of times I'll base it off flow and how I've seen. There's a good chance, because I've been playing them long enough, that I've owned that name in the past. I'll give you an example, like CZR. I can't buy this thing. No matter what, I cannot buy it because I know it can catch a ton of action, and it's just not a mover. If I want to own the group, I rather own a Win or something like that, or an LVS. That's another one, by the way. That saw a little bit of action, right? We were talking about it. LVS quarterback, November's. That didn't last a day. Look at this. All right? This is like capitulation here. Yeah, we've seen puts in these things. You're going to see puts too. Even the names you may be looking at, you're going to see put action, because what happens is, let's say, for example, we haven't seen puts yet in this, but let's say like SGMS, okay? Somebody's coming in and building a big position in leaps. You may see these guys come in and buy some October puts if they think the selling is just ridiculous, to soften the blow a little bit. So that's why you're always, even if a name has decent sized call flow with time, You're going to see some put action when they look like this. But this LVS is crazy. Wow. And we were talking about this, Ani, right now, these casino names, okay, the way when I was brought into the game and the playbook and stuff like that, when you see this price action in casinos like this, it's usually a heads up. They're factoring in a recession. Okay, that's usually the tell. Now, we say that, and then you look at names that should be hit if that's the case, if we're looking at a recession, and they're at new highs. It's just not a lot of stuff makes sense out there. Eventually, it creates opportunities, but right now it doesn't make sense. Right? The world, how about the world in general? The whole world is on fire. Brazil, China, emerging markets, Turkey, this one, that one. If you would have told me that was all going on, I'd be like, we got a real nice correction here. SPY's got to be down, what? Minimum 15% off the highs. It was just at new highs a couple days ago. It was just at new highs. And that goes into the point we were talking about earlier, Eric, with the midterm elections. Don't get me wrong. I think it's a concern. Everyone's concerned about those midterms. But if they're already factoring that in, the news is already there. We all know about it. If you and I are talking about it and hedge funds are already selling before it, it's already factored in. Already factored in. We see it time and time again. Yes, 100%. Ryan, the smartest is always get humbled. That's why sometimes you're too smart for this game, Ryan. Sometimes you know too much for this game. You see all the guys who sound intelligent about the market. They sound like they know what they're talking about economically and stuff. They can't make $1 because it means nothing. It means nothing. It means absolutely nothing. All right. So, but listen, we are in September. Okay. We always got to consider that. I told you when I was a broker, I know I say it like a broken record, but I tell you, I used to make sure when I was managing client money, I'd be in all cash going into every September. I didn't care what anything looked like because I couldn't get out quick enough. It was more of that, right? I couldn't, if I needed to get out, for clients, you can't get out that easy. And that could be why hedge funds are doing it. But trading your personal account is a lot different. But September has that aura about it. All right, so we gotta take that into consideration, but we don't want to be blinded by it, and we also want to respect what we were just talking about. If everybody feels that way, that means there's a decent setup lining up on the other side, and we're starting to see it now, in the stuff we look at religiously. This stuff, All right, and then like John was saying, when you see that flow start to light it up, you want to see that appetite for buying. That's what you want to see. It's not, oh, that was a decent bet in CRM today. You want to see them come after 5, 6 names where you want to own them all, but you can't. That's the type of buying you want to see. And it will show up at some point. Ani brings up a good point. The election, we saw the same thing. Everybody bearish, all these indicators lining up a week before the election, all these indicators were lining up. Everybody bearish, everybody in cash, everybody in puts. Trump ends up winning the election. The market was going to go to zero, and then the flow exploded on the call side. As a matter of fact, prior to that, I wasn't swing trading at all. I was only day trading. Okay? I hung up swing trading. It wasn't worth it. The flow was awful. There was nothing going on. So I said, I'm just going to focus on day trading because into weakness, we get those nice squeezes. And then post-election, the type of buying that came in, that's when I started swing trading again. So we're going to see it in the flow. TLRY. What is that? That's the weed stock? Is that the other weed stock? Yeah. These things are nuts. They're nuts. We saw a little bit of action in a couple of them. Cron, right? Citron came out with a short. They ran them over already here. So, but up here now, you got to be careful, Eric. You got to be careful up here. You got to be careful. Can they squeeze higher? Of course they can, but this is a big move now. Look at this. This is a big move. The money in these things are made trading, and if you got the key hoons, when the volatility spikes like that, to write some stuff. That's another thing why on the options on these things now are tough. IV's through the roof. You're getting robbed. You're going to get robbed. So that makes it difficult. Anybody else have any names they're looking at? Anything look interesting? Any of those tech software names or anything? FTC, had a little bit of a pullback. You probably want to see some buying maybe come in, unless you think this pullback is enough. I mean, it's not that much. Julian, CHK, I don't fool around with that stock. I don't fool around with it. I saw calls, puts, I saw everything. You see a little bit of each and all that. Splunk, I haven't looked at Splunk. That had a pullback. Let's see. Yeah, Splunk, a little breather here. You see the other thing we were seeing too? I'm no DeMark aficionado, but a lot of nines all over the place for breathers. Even SPY had one. See that here? A lot of these names had niners. CGC, that's a weed stock, isn't it? Yeah, I can't. I don't know. The thing is too, Gilbert, the calls on these things, you're getting robbed out the rear end. What's the implied volatility on these things? Got to be juiced. They're tough now. They're tough. They're robbing people on both sides, calls and puts. Apple, that came out late afternoon. There was actually some buying coming into Apple. Could have been some rolling though, but Apple had some flow Friday as well. I would definitely, you get a little pullback, whatchamacallit, Monday off this junk. By the way, that second round of tariff stuff that they're talking about, that's months away, months. They still got to do the first one next week. The one that may implicate Apple stuff, they're not even close to that yet. They're not even close to that. Here's the stuff that could be a risk to the upside. Canada, that deal gets done, right? Mexico, Canada. Then you're going to have Mr. Donald focus on the China thing, and he's going to be a little less, you know what I mean? He wants to get those deals done first and use that as leverage. And then you're going to see things start to materialize on the China end. Not even deal-wise, get-together talks, all stuff that could be bullish for the market. So, but you need that Canada thing getting out of the way. Once they get that deal done, that could be a risk to the downside if they don't. But if they get that done, and they should, then we should start seeing some positive comments about China negotiations. Deere, that you make a good point. Some of these stocks are starting to look better, right? Deere, Cat, Boeing last week. Yeah, Boeing. These industrials, same thing, right? Some of them, like this Caterpillar, there was pretty aggressive selling there. Couldn't really find a rally. Now trying to find a bottom here. You know, it could be a spot on it. Maybe they get aggressive here. I think it's possible. No, exactly. That's the whole point. We cannot sleep on these things. If you see decent sweeper activity come into this caterpillar consolidation here, we got to be open-minded. You know, we got to be open-minded. We got to be open-minded. We know Caterpillar caught some decent sweeps in the past. Deere was one of the first ones they hit off the Trump election. Missiles. And I'll be honest with you, none of us wanted to touch this thing. That's how bad it was. Right? Where's the election here? Is this the election? Yeah. So it came out of here. See this? And look what the hell happened to this thing. Look what happened to this thing. So as bad as some of these things may feel and look, and you don't want to touch them, like Ani's saying, you gotta keep your eyes on the price action and the flow. Yeah, this definitely looks like it's trying to hang on to the bottom here. You know, Boeing has been pretty strong, all in all. This thing should be getting murdered off the tariff news. Look at this. After a run like this. My God. What other names we got going on here? Yeah, so the industrials, the Boeing, the Deere, the Cat, they're all setting up. We just need action. Snap, I don't really have an opinion there. Yeah, all we see is, oh, I didn't even realize that. You see spec action from time to time in Snap. You know, they'll play like weeklies, cheap weeklies and stuff. But I don't really have much of an opinion. Looks pretty bad, though. Looks pretty bad there. Yeah, the Facebook, you know, give them time. Let's see. You know, these things, they can catch huge amounts of flow. If they're ready to get back in them, you won't miss the call buying. It'll be gigantic. Biotechs, it's been like, yeah, like you're saying, Gilbert, a couple of small ones. I'm trying to think. Yeah, we had a little bit of action, J&J. That was like last month, I think, right? I don't know. We haven't seen anything noteworthy there. I'm trying to think. Otherwise, we'd be talking about it. You know, we had some action. I think it was in August, early August, in some of these things. Yeah, Pfizer. Is that still moving? Yeah. These things have had nice moves, right? Again, Pfizer, another one, couldn't get out of its own way. She busted out. MDGL, I never heard of that one, I don't think. It's a biotech? Yeah. AGN. Oh, AGN, it was a roll, but caught an order Thursday, Friday, I think, right, Gordon? AGN. I remember a bet there. I think it might have rolled, though. You know, it might have rolled. And then we've been seeing some of the smaller roll the dice names that have FDA approval and all that stuff. You got to be careful with those things, though. Yeah, I think like Ani's saying, we already know, again, with the strong stuff, right? You guys are talking about a lot of them. You see weakness there, you see action, you got to trade there. I think the position stuff is like stuff Ani's pointing out, you know? Some of these industrials, some of these things that have been totally forgotten. And listen, maybe the flow doesn't come there. You don't want to really predict it. That's how you get in trouble. You just want to keep an open mind, no matter where it comes, to keep an open mind about it. Well, it could come into some of the strong stuff we've been seeing. What do you guys think about Salesforce? Think it's a little late to the party here? Well, it's not early to the party. We know that. Grub, you saw that leap bet in Grub Friday? What a beast. What a beast. What else? So you guys, for the most part, you've been, yeah, Roku. I love Roku. Love Roku. Dream for, oh, they have that conference at the end of the month, CRM, Maria saying. Maybe you're going to move into that. Netflix, Ani, I just haven't seen any real action, you know? Just weekly sweeps and stuff like that. Good call, Bill. Teva. I would like to see more size there. They've been nibbling, but I would definitely keep an eye on it. Decent pull. They love to buy pullbacks in these things. Yeah, just nothing really has got me too excited. Somebody mentioned PAGs. You just watch EWZ. So you got a little lift here. If they can squeeze Brazil or even stop the selling there, you'll see PAGs start to rally again. PAGs came out with numbers. I don't know if you guys seen it. They were ridiculous. Unbelievable. They're in the right sector, right? Into that payment sector. The problem is it's Brazil. You understand? And anytime they sell this basket, they're going to sell anything with the word Brazil in it. There's nothing else to even scratch your head about. You know? PSTG, good call. That's an interesting name. It's been a nice mover. Caught some more action late last week. See, this is like if they're going to come into software tech, I hope they come into more names like this, under the hood names. You know, PSTG, for those of you who may not be familiar, had really nice buying right off this 9. Can you see it? But then you had this, earnings, and that was that gap up. Okta, what sector is that? Okta. I know the stock, but I'm not familiar with that name. I know it's been hot. Okta is what? Oh, so it's in that tech software IT group, huh? Cloud. It's all cloud. CLDR. How about Coop? That was up 10 off the earnings there. You know, that was another name I never heard of. I don't know about you guys prior to they opened the largest position of open interest in that name, Coop. See, I like these underbelly stocks if we start to see flow in some new ones. I love these things. These are the names I love. I love them. Nobody really knows about them. Do you remember that name that caught a little action? We were talking about a while ago, and we were saying how nobody even knows this stock exists. It's $100 stock, Hubs, HUBS. Right? Nobody even, who knows this stock? Nobody talks about this thing. Hubs. New highs Friday, 150, what, 2? Nuts. So yeah, anybody, you guys ever see a name and I happen to miss it, because I don't know, you see even small sweeper activity, give me a heads up because you don't want to miss any activity in some of these underbelly plays before they go. Another one was that Domo, but that had earnings. Look at that reversal. Whoop. Keep an eye on. Maybe they buy some of that into Spot. Yeah, Spot had a little bit of action, a little bit of bounce. Nothing major though. But she's been decent off pullbacks. Spot. The other one I think is announcing any day now, right? PVTL. PVTL. You got earnings coming up here. Intuit. Yeah, that's another one, right? Intuit. Sheesh. PVTLs this week. Yeah, so we'll see. Again, we need the flow, but we'll see. All right, so we'll keep an eye on all this stuff. I'll post, even those of you on private Twitter. Well, I post the breakdown no matter what on the sentiment stuff. But these are the things to keep a look at into next week, right? You got the overall trader sentiment, NASDAQ sentiment, equity put the call, and then we'll keep an eye on this guy here. You know, what I was sometimes weighing, it's you got to keep an eye on it always, but sometimes it might be better you wait for this starting to go like this. You know what I mean? Now you don't catch the lows, but you get in the middle of that buying. You know, when it turns, but sometimes you get pump fakes like this. Look. So it's really tough. It's tough. But isn't it amazing how they go from no exposure, all in, then no exposure, all in? This is crazy, though. I tell you, I see something like this. All I got to see is flow. Yeah, exactly why they lose money. All I got to see is flow, and I want to get really, really aggressive. That's all I want to see is sweepers confirming it for me. That's it. You know, I get so itchy that I want to do it even without the sweeper activity, but I don't want to be foolish, you know, when you see this. Because you hear about how hedge funds have been a debacle for years now. And like Ani's saying, that's why. Because of this. Look. You know, you keep moving around like that. And what happens, I think it was John who said it earlier, if you going into the end of the year and this market's at highs, you can't have no long, you know what I mean? By the way, all you guys who are Paul Tudor Jones fans, right? That's what he's predicting. You heard him? He's saying this is going to turn into this, and you're going to have 1999 style melt up into Christmas. I'm trying to cash you guys up. No, but seriously, Paul Tudor Jones, if you YouTube him, his last interview, he don't do many interviews. So you'll find it right away. That's what he's calling for. The blow off. All right, boys and girls, always a pleasure. Enjoy your weekend. I thought maybe the casino was closed Monday, Tuesday. It's not, right? Jewish holidays. Might be quiet though. All right, but I'll talk to you guys early next week. And again, just keep an eye on some of these things, but the flow will light the match. So we're going to keep an eye on that primarily. You too, guys. Have a good weekend. I'll talk to you guys soon.